I just want to thank God for each and every one of the saints, people who are here today, who are here with us in person, who are here with us virtually on Zoom. We have an exciting program today around African Ancestry information session with Diallo Sumbry, President and CEO of the Adinkra Group. He's with us from Sierra Leone right now. So we bless him for his time. We bless his father, Diallo Sumbry, who is really the catalyst behind why we are here today as our historian of the ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, Greater Trenton chapter. And so I give thanks to Diallo, thanks to Aula. We want to say a quick prayer for Aula for his health, for his 100% recovery from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet. We want to send out a very special prayer for Aula, who couldn't be with us today, who is doing well, but still continues to need our heartfelt prayers. And so as president of ASALH Greater Trenton, my name is Gerald Trueheart, president, one of the founders and co-founders with other members, Vice President Stacy Denton, our treasurer, Lucia Brown, our secretary, Gwen Trueheart, our historian, Diallo Sumbry, amen, and myself as the president. We want to welcome you to this exciting program around African American history, and so and African ancestry. So Diallo Sumbry, President and CEO of the Adinkra Group, I just want to hand it off to you to begin our program. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Technology is amazing because I'm 3,500 miles away or something like that. I'm currently in Sierra Leone right now. I do spend most of my time in Ghana. So I apologize that I don't have my camera on, but one of the tricks to keeping a good signal when you're this far is when you turn your camera off, it gives your audio more vim. So if I turn my camera on, it's more likely that it'll drag, there'll be a delay and things like that. So I apologize. But just to reiterate what Brother Gerald said and what Sister Christine said, this was really the brainchild of my father, who, for lack of a better word, didn't really give me much choice, but to make sure that this happened for my hometown of Trenton, New Jersey. I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey. Shouts out to West Ingham Avenue. Shouts out to my family who's still there. Shouts out to everybody who got a half gallon of Halo Farms juice in their refrigerator. I know y'all do. I see people laughing. That's how you always know somebody say they from Trenton. Somebody tell me they from Trenton, I'll be like, what's your favorite Halo Farms? If they don't know what it is, then I'm like, you're not from Trenton. You probably from Lawrence or something, but you ain't from Trenton. Anyway, I went to, I see somebody laughing. I went to APAS, African People's Action School, located on Ingham Avenue, and went through Ann Tyler, Fisher, and Ewing before moving to DC. So without holding you too long, the Adinkra Group is an African cultural resource company, and we are focused on connecting the bridge from the African diaspora and the African continent, and we do that in a number of ways. One, we have some studios in Washington, D.C., which started in Trenton, New Jersey, right on West Ingham Avenue. I believe my mom is on the call, who got us involved in doing plays and just African culture, and traveling up to New York, drumming and dancing. So we have studios where we teach African cultural arts from the ages 2 through adult. And then we also have something called Birthright Journeys. And I see Larry and Princess Hoagland, who we had the pleasure of traveling with us to Ghana. And that was kind of, you know, because they actually were going with another Trenton native by a Kemet who wound up not going in, and they wound up coming with us. So it's good to see that they're here as well. I mentioned what the Adinkra Group does. Now, One of the other ways we do that is through strong partnerships. And I happen to also work with AfricanAncestry.com as their director of partnerships. So my father was really adamant about folks in Trenton being able to trace their ancestry. He was really adamant about pushing the role of ASALH and felt that ASALH should have a more prominent role in discussions, considering its founder, the late great George Washington Carver, and the fact that my father and I are members of the greatest fraternity known to human beings, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So I see you, Christine. Don't cover your face, Christine. You know I'm gonna say it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about African ancestry, and as opposed to me talking to you about African ancestry and explaining it, we're going to show you a few videos. These are really internal videos that if you search for, you wouldn't find, but we use them in presentations. The videos are really going to say it all. 3 very short videos that's going to explain African ancestry. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of break down for you how those videos are going to do that. The first video that you'll see is going to talk about identity. So just to give you some background information, African Ancestry has been around for over 18 years, founded by Dr. Gina Page, who's my partner and the current president, and her partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, who's the world's leading Black geneticist. And African Ancestry was actually the first company in this DNA tracing space. And we say it's the only testing company for Black people because it's the only company that can trace your ancestry directly to a modern day country and a modern day ethnic group. Now, why do we say modern day country? Because we know that the geographical borders in Africa are fairly new, beginning in the 1800s. So when you think about, for example, I trace my ancestry, my maternal ancestry was traced to the Fulani people of modern day Nigeria. My paternal ancestry was traced to the Ateke people of modern day Gabon. Now we say modern day because when you learn about the Fulani people, you know that the Fulani were nomads. So you're going to find Fulani in Nigeria, you're going to find Fulani in Mali and Senegal, you're going to find them in Sierra Leone and Guinea. You'll find them throughout all of the modern day West African countries right now. And then same for various other ethnic groups. So, like I said, African Ancestry has been around for about 18, 20 years. It's a Black-owned company. It's a woman-led company. And we root for everybody Black with African Ancestry as much as possible. If we could have, we could have all Black UPS drivers to deliver your kits to your mailbox, we would. It's 100%, like I said, a Black-owned company. So the first video is going to talk to you about identity. And the identity section kind of explains who we are and why African ancestry exists, why we do what we do. The second video that you'll watch, again, these are very short videos, but comprehensive, and they'll explain, is going to talk to you about the science behind African ancestry and what makes African ancestry different than all of the other testing kits and all of the other companies that are on the market. And then the third video that you'll see, we'll talk about comparison and conclusion. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A. So I'm not sure if we'll need all of the time that we have allotted. Feel free at the end to ask any question that you have or place the question in the chat. And I'm sure Christine will be moderating the chat so that if you do have a question there, we can be sure to answer it at the end. Now, again, for me, a native of Trenton, New Jersey, I travel a lot throughout West Africa. Why am I in Sierra Leone right now? So in the spring of this year, we brokered a deal with the Sierra Leonean government where if you take the African ancestry test and your results are found to be from Sierra Leone, you automatically qualify for citizenship. So in April, we brought a group of people here who was able to get citizenship. There were 59 in total. About 9 or 10 traveled directly with African ancestry. And then next month in November, we'll have another group of people. This time we'll have about 30 people traveling with us directly. So it could be well over 100 people that are here. And one of the things that we are doing as we extend the olive branch and to complete the identity circle with people taking their DNA test is reaching out to governments in these countries and attempting to get citizenship on behalf of our people back home. So because we can identify that someone is from the Mende or the Timne or the Limba tribe, these are all tribes native to Sierra Leone, when we bring those individuals back here, they don't just come to Sierra Leone. So when you're a Mende, we take you to a Mende village and you're adopted by a Mende village. You have a renaming ceremony, you get a Mende name. If you're Timne, you go to a Timne village and then you're adopted by that village. And if you're Limba, you go to a Limba village. And we do that, we're working on doing that with all of the countries where we find ancestry, okay? All right, so Christine, we can go ahead and start with the first video. That was really kind of a broad overview, but I want to get into the topics. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the African Ancestry family. This presentation is designed to give you a historical context, a scientific context, and a cultural context for the work that we do. Tracing ancestry for people of African descent is similar to doing a puzzle. You have all these different pieces that you put together only to get to the end and realize that there's one piece missing. And that you look everywhere you can for that one piece and can't find it anywhere. That's how our identity works. And the reason it works that way is because we, as Black people, are the original victims of identity theft. When we were forcibly stolen from African lands, we lost everything that helps to determine your identity. Without your name, without your language, without the freedom to venerate and honor your ancestors, without a connectedness to your family, both nuclear and extended, how can you know who you are? It's very, very difficult. But there's one thing that we didn't lose in that transatlantic slave trade and over the 400 years of enslavement, and that is our DNA. AfricanAncestry.com is the only company that's using your DNA respectfully to restore your lost identity. So let's talk about the African ancestry identity. Who are we? We are the pioneer of genetic ancestry tracing for Black people around the world. Our mission is to help Black people transform the way they view themselves and the way that they view Africa. We do that by telling you the present day African country and ethnic group or tribe that you share ancestry with. We're the only company that can do that. We're for us, by us, in that our staff is Black, all of our scientists are Black, as many of our partners and suppliers and vendors as possible are Black. We recycle our Black dollars as much as possible. And probably most importantly to people is our commitment to data security. We do not sell or share our customers' personal or genetic information. And our lab destroys the DNA once a result is determined. No other company has that policy.
Okay, so that was just a short bit on identity. Everybody here who's a member of ASALH or a member of Trent House, you didn't hear, you might not have heard anything new. You might not have heard anything that you had not heard before. However, when we start thinking about identity, many of us engage in customs that connect us to identity. Many of us celebrate Kwanzaa and have been celebrating Kwanzaa for a long time because it connects us to identity. The red, black, and green connects us to our identity. Many of us travel to Africa, we wear African clothes, we change our hairstyle. All of these things are connected to our identity. And as Dr. Page said, one of the things that we did not lose is we did not lose our DNA. Now, everybody here, I'm sure most of us will remember or will know that will witness and take part of our ancestral memory happening, right? So one of the things I realized as I started traveling through Africa is I started seeing so many Black things that are African. It began to make sense to me why our parents and our grandparents made us sit down and eat together. Why Sunday dinner was such an important thing in Black households. It's not just so that you don't spill food on the carpet or on your grandmother's couch, or so that your food can digest well, but there's a spiritual element to sitting down and eating together. It's a familial relationship. And African people are relatable people. We relate well to each other, to other human beings, to the environment, and to nature. We've done that traditionally. So one of the things that we find in our identity, and one of the things that most people find once they've taken this test and they've zoomed in and started to do research, is you start finding things in that are characteristics of that specific ethnic group that you see in your family. It happens all the time. Or you see a picture of someone and you're like, oh my God, that's Uncle Lester. Uncle Lester's in Africa, you know? So you start to see and feel various things that will connect you, right? So many of us, even without going all the way back to Africa, many of us have members in our family, right? We have grandparents or great-grandparents, or as we begin to learn our family history and you dig into your family history, somebody say she acts just like Aunt Joe. Grand Aunt Joe, right? And you never met your grand aunt, but you look like her. You got the same demeanor as her, right? They're like, ooh, nobody cut their eyes at you like since Aunt Joe it'd be a baby in your family, 3 weeks old with a look on her face that's looking like somebody in your family 150 years ago. All of those things are ancestral memory. All of those things are tied to your DNA and they're tied to who you are. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of make that commentary. So now we are going to take a look at the next video, which is going to talk about the science of African ancestry. And it's really going to explain to you why and how African Ancestry does something different than the other companies. And we're able to trace your maternal lineage separately from your paternal lineage. And your lineage is traced from 500 to 2,000 years back. So let's take a look at this next video.
African Ancestry has two main products, the matriclan test and the patriclan test. These are single lineage tests. That means that they look at or trace one branch of the many branches of a person's family tree. We do not test for percentages of ancestry. This is not the test for that. We do not test for health traits. This is not the test for that. We do not test for relationship. So you won't find your fifth or sixth cousin with this test. And we cannot guarantee that the result will be African. Now I'd like to show you briefly how the science of African ancestry works. The matriclan test traces one branch of your family tree back through your mother, her mother, etc., for up to 2,000 years. We each inherit 50% of our DNA from our mother and 50% from our father. So if your mother's yellow and your father's blue, then you're going to be green. But imagine that you're green and you have a little yellow dot. You have a little bit of DNA that you inherited from your mother that did not mix with anything you got from your father. That's called mitochondrial DNA. It's maternally inherited, which means that mothers pass it to their children. So that means you and your brothers and sisters have the exact same mitochondrial DNA as your mother and her brothers and sisters, because they got it from your grandmother and she got it from her mother and her mother and her mother for generations. That yellow dot didn't change. And so this DNA allows us to tell you the ancestry of that line. You, your mother, her mother, her mother. Both men and women can take this test. But to be clear, It's only going to tell you about this one yellow line. It is not going to tell you about the ancestries of any of the other branches of the tree on this chart. There's a 92% chance that the result will be African, which means there's an 8% chance that it will not be African. If it's not African, we'll tell you whether it's European, or if it's Native American, or if it's Middle Eastern or Asian. The patriclan test works in a similar way. Our mother's yellow, our father's blue, we're green, we have a yellow dot, but men also have a blue dot. They have a little bit of DNA that they've inherited from the father called the Y chromosome, and that does not mix with anything they get from the mother. It stays blue. The Y chromosome is paternally inherited, which means it's passed from father to son, father to son, father to son. And so when we want to trace the ancestry of a paternal line, it requires a male to take the test, and then you'll get the ancestry of you, your father, his father, all the way back. Only men can take this test. That means if a woman wants to know her paternal ancestry, she needs a male relative on her father's line to take that test. Her brother, her father, her uncle's son, her grandfather. These are all possibilities. It cannot be her son, though. A woman's son gets his blue dot from his father, not from his mother's father. This test, again, is only going to tell you about that blue line. It's not going to tell you about any of the other branches of the tree on this chart. In the case of the patriclan test, there's only a 65% chance that the result will be African. There's a 35% chance that it will be European. So the way this process works is that every company really takes a person's DNA, they highlight a tiny segment of it, and then compares that segment to the same segment of DNA of people all over the world. So if you're searching for an African result, you want your DNA to be compared to the DNA of as many Africans as possible, right? My business partner, Dr. Rick Kittles, he collaborated with researchers across the continent to collect the largest database of African lineages in the world. We now have over 33,000 yellow dots and blue dots from 40 countries and 400 ethnic groups and tribes. And so that's important because, again, we know that we come from before Alabama, before Virginia, before Haiti, before Cuba, before Brazil. We come from Western countries in Africa, or countries on the west coast of Africa. And so it's important that we have DNA from all of those countries, not just regions, but the actual countries, so that we can give you specificity in your results. And our ancestor with Bozeman explains very clearly in this interview with the Charlemagne on the Breakfast Club why that's important.
But as an African American, you're always going to feel like until you make that connection that there's a disconnect there. What I did is I took a DNA test.
Me too.
Yeah. So where you from?
I'm 97% East African, West African.
No, see, that's the wrong test.
Which one you took? Like you got the
You took Ancestry.
yeah.
I took African Ancestry.
What's the difference?
So African Ancestry can tell you the specific ethnic group that you come from. So not only, if you just know, the country, that's still the European borders to a certain degree.
Gotcha.
But if you know that you're Yoruba from Nigeria, then you can now you can pinpoint specific customs and rituals that are part of your past. If I know that I'm Jola from Guinea-Bissau, I'm naming all the stuff that I found in that I'm Limba from Sierra Leone, that's a more specific. I can go talk to somebody there that specifically knows, this is your background.
I need to do that.
So there's a couple of things I want to point out about that may have stood out to you. Number one, Chadwick Boseman was not paid to do that at all. So we did not know that was going to happen. The phones just started ringing the next morning, and we're trying to figure out what happened. Why, where are these orders coming from? What is the call? Why is the phone ringing? Why is the email blowing up? And then someone sent the video and it's like, oh. So when Black Panther tell everybody that this, when Black Panther says you took the wrong test and this is the right test, the whole nation of Wakanda listens. And Black people, all of us, we got natural honorary passports to Wakanda. When Black Panther came out, it was like, I don't know. It was like just a new a composition of all Black sitcoms of all time. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to point out to you is that if you notice, there was a very stark difference in the percentages. 92% of the times when you take the matrilineal test, it comes back African versus 67% for the men. And most of us probably will think about, well, why is that? Well, if you think about DNA, and if you think about the time period, and you think about our history and our relationship with this one very small period of time that kind of seems to define us more often than not, which is the transatlantic slave trade, white men were having their way with African women a lot. And when you visit the slave dungeons across West Africa, you'll even see that the layout and the structures of the masters or the head colonizer's main room was situated so that he had easy and direct access to the women's slave dungeon. It's that way at Cape Coast. It's that way at Elmina. I'm sure it's that way in Nigeria. And I'm sure if the ruins were still built up here on Bunce Island in Sierra Leone, that you would see that. So you'll find that naturally some people are upset if they take a DNA test and it says that you're European, because you might be Black as coal. You got a black nose, you got a black eyes, you got black lips. But somewhere in your DNA several hundred years ago, we don't know where that blue dot came from. So it's always important that we share that with people, and that it's something that we actually don't run away from, and we look at it head on, simply because it's our history. It's our history. We have that unique history. One of the things we deal with citizenship all of the time is that we say Black people, for lack of a better word, are the lost tribes of Israel, because we can't come here and inherit land. We can't go to a village and say, my grandfather left me this land or farm. We have that 400 or 500 year gap in our history. So that identity is really important. That identity that we talked about is really important. And being able to connect by DNA is also important. So I just wanted to share that part about the science, and we will again have some questions about that at the end if anybody has any questions about that. I will now play the last video that compares African Ancestry's test to the other tests that are on the market, and that will explain to you exactly what makes African Ancestry different from everyone else. So go.
Now I want to just quickly take you through the difference between African Ancestry and other companies, because there are some important differences. Remember, I said we do single lineage testing. Other companies do what's called autosomal testing. So while we look at the yellow dot or the blue dot, they look at the green. They look at the DNA that's all been mixed together across all of the branches of your family tree. So because it all got mixed up together and changed, they can't be as specific when it comes to ancestry. When they're looking for your African ancestry, They're basing it on very small sample sizes. 23andMe only compares your DNA to 621 African DNA samples. Ancestry.com only compares your DNA to 1,395 African DNA samples. Remember, AfricanAncestry.com compares your DNA to over 33,000 African DNA samples. The other difference is that they give you regional breakdowns that don't tell you which line of the family tree, they don't tell you countries, and they don't tell you ethnic groups. And so what's missing from the analysis that you get from other companies is, again, that cultural connection that's based in traditions and practices and values and beliefs. They've divided the continent of Africa into regions. And so as you see here, someone can be 36% from the region they've called Cameroon, Congo, and Southern Bantu. Southern Bantu people are all across Africa. So this is a very wide regionality that doesn't give you much specificity. Benin/Togo. Is it Benin or is it Togo? What's the ethnic group? Which part of the family? Mali is a region. Nigeria is a region. Ivory Coast/Ghana is a region. So then you have to ask, well, what does this mean? It basically means that you're West African. And if you know history, you already know that you come from West Africa. And so this type of testing does not help answer the identity question as it relates to Africa. It may help you find your fifth or sixth cousin. It may help you find health traits, but it's not going to help you with your Africanness. Tracing ancestry is an act of political resistance. It really is. Imagine the power that comes from everyone in the Americas and the Caribbean knowing their specific African roots. That's a foundation, that's a grounding that gives us that connection to the essence of where humanity began. And when you have that information, you have a sense of pride, you have a sense of place, you have a sense of belonging that gives you the confidence to stand up to, or to withstand, or to overcome, or to turn around all of the social injustices, the economic injustices, the political injustices that we've continued to experience 401 years later. I welcome you to the African Ancestry family. I look forward to being able to share with you what your family's ancestry is, because remember, when you take a test with us, you're providing information for an entire lineage of your family, from the people who came before you to all of those who will come after you in the family.
I just wanted to give y'all a minute to see some of the individuals who have taken our test. So that's really the end of the presentation. And if we have any questions, or Christine or Gerald, if you all have any comments before we get to the Q&A. I mentioned is that African Ancestry is not a genealogy tracing company. So what some people do is they'll take their African Ancestry DNA test, and then they'll go in and begin to do research to try to trace their family back to that particular part in the census, those slave ship records, and then they go through that process. That's not something that African Ancestry is, and that's not something that African Ancestry does. However, what Ashley can do is Ashley could be the pioneer in her family who traces the ancestry from on her mother's side. So if Ashley took the maternal test, it would give her the result for her mother, her mother's mother, any of her mother's children, or her mother's siblings as well. It would give her the maternal line. And if she wanted to find out her paternal line, then she would either have to go to her father, or if her father had brothers, or her grandfather.
So we do have a question here in person. Denise Johnson is here with a question. Denise?
Thank you. So I actually had the test done, and it was actually very emotional to read the information that we received, part of the TCAR people in Cameroon. So I'm very happy about that. I did share it with my siblings. But then my sister calls my cousin, who we're related by, so we did the lineage, we did the maternal line. I have a cousin her mother is not part of the family. So this cousin is her father, who's related to my mother, right? So my cousin's mother is, if she did the African Ancestry, which we asked her to do that, I don't know what she would find. But this woman, this TCAR woman who landed in America, and the women who followed after her, I always wanted to know, is my cousin related to the TCAR people? It's not her mother's line, but we share a grandmother. So is she related to the TCAR, to the TCAR people as well? So I always wanted to know that question. I was gonna call African Ancestry to see if she was related, because like I said, we share the same grandmother, but we didn't,
grandmother. You share the same grandmother on the maternal side.
On the maternal side.
So your grandmother is her grandmother.
Is her grandmother as well, yes.
And is her grandmother from her mother or her father?
Her father's side. So her father and my mother are brother, sister, and they share the same mother. So her mother is, so she has a different maternal line. My cousin does.
So exactly, she has a different maternal line.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be TCAR if I'm correct, because your mother's mother is her father's mother, but her mother is someone different.
Yes.
So it's a different maternal line. So it's a different maternal line.
I understand. Okay, so when she does the testing, it's going to show. It's not going to show that TCARs. It may or may not, but it will show something different. You're testing different genetics.
Exactly. So remember, she's related to you through her paternal ancestry. Not through her. She's related to you through her paternal ancestry. Her father's mother is your grandmother, not her mother's mother.
Yes, I get it. Okay, I see.
Okay. Yeah.
We have another one, Larry and Princess. I took the patriclan test and traced my paternal ancestry to Sierra Leone. How do I go about getting my citizenship for Sierra Leone?
Congratulations, Larry and Princess. So who took the patriclan? Well, of course, Larry did, because Patricia can't take it. Okay, so you can do two things, Larry. If you go to travel.africanancestry.com, it may be too late if you wanted to get it in November. I mean, that's kind of right around the corner, but you got my number, so you can text me. And if you wanted to come in November, I'd make that happen. But the next one is in April. So what I've been telling people is, we only know that it's going to happen once the government announces it. So the government will announce, hey, we're having another citizenship ascension program. So they'll announce it. So it'll only be at a specific time. It's not something that you can just come, bring your documents, go to immigration, sign up, get a certificate. No, because when you get to Sierra Leone, the president has to be the one to hand you your passport. So when you go through immigration to get your passport, it's at a ceremony with the president. You have to read the oath with everybody else, and then he actually gives you, he actually hands you your passport. So they do that 2 times a year. So far, it looks like that time is going to be in April and November, but I always have to say that we don't make that determination. The government of Sierra Leone does. So once they do, they require that you either travel with African Ancestry or a local tour company. And then you come, there's a number of documents that you have to provide, police reports, copy of your passport, if you have a change in name, birth certificate, things like that. And then you gather all of these documents together with an authenticated African Ancestry certificate. So you already took the test and you got a certificate, but you would just need to get it authenticated. They've put that in place just to protect themselves from anybody showing up saying, you know, here go a certificate. You get it authenticated, you show up during the time, and you walk away with a passport. So you can get a matriclan kit and or a patriclan kit. And the kit is $299. So a lot of people say, well, why is it so expensive? And then I will normally counter with, well, it's actually not that expensive. So it depends on how you look at it and where you place value. We see that in our communities, we spend money where we see value. Some of us have bags that cost 3 to 4, pocketbooks that have 3 to 4 times the cost of the kit. We have shoes that cost 3 to 4 times of the kit. We have clothes. Some of us have hair that costs 3 to 4 times of the kit. So what we look at is when you, and it's real, but when you look at who the test covers in your family, if you count 5, 6, 7, or 10 people on your maternal line or 10 people on your paternal line, and then you divide that by the cost, you got to remember you're providing the ancestral DNA for a whole line in your family. Like you're providing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 people. It doesn't really matter how many, depends on the size of the family, right? Same for the paternal. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is most of these other companies are either co-owned or co-opted by a lot of pharmaceutical companies. Most people don't realize that Ancestry.com, people say, well, why is Ancestry.com so cheap? Well, Ancestry.com doesn't make its money from selling test kits. Ancestry.com is a genealogical subscription company. So they get their money because they have millions of people paying $39 a month to be able to trace their ancestry using their genealogical database. 23andMe is owned by some pharmaceutical company. So, African Ancestry is a fairly small Black-owned company. And we believe that the value of the kit is actually a lot more than the cost of the kit. And Christine, what we want to do, I think it may be important for people to know, because you have people on Facebook and things like that a part of what this is with Trent House and ASALH is we're looking at doing a community reveal for Trenton. So the goal of this whole thing was so that people in the Trenton community, families, relatives, and ancestors, and people that are very specifically connected with ASALH and connected with Trent House, we're going to provide you with the link that you'll send out to everybody. And we want everybody who's going to participate in this Black History Month reveal 2022 to purchase the kit through the link that you send out specifically. And everybody who purchases the link through that, purchases the kit through that link, you can talk more about the group swabbing that you all will do. And then we're going to host a group reveal with everybody who participates in this program, where Dr. Gina Page will come in February, and then she'll actually do the reveal. The reveal most likely will be virtual, but that's where we actually reveal publicly what your ancestry is, your maternal or your paternal, and we tell everybody, this is your paternal ancestry, this is your maternal ancestry, this is your, the modern day country and the ethnic group. So while some people on Facebook may be here and may be getting the information, which is excellent, but for people who are not planning to participate in the ASALH or the Trent House Reveal program, they can just go to AfricanAncestry.com. But individuals who are looking to participate with ASALH and Trent House, they should wait until they get the link from you, Christine and Gerald, and then purchase the kit through that, and then follow your instructions on timing and et cetera.
Thank you. Sounds good. From Ryan, I see that you have a family package. What is the benefit or advantage of buying that instead of the individual packages?
I believe the family package is, I'm not looking at it, but I think it's the matriclan and the patriclan kit. So there's a slight discount if you buy both as opposed to buying one. And if you buy the family kit, then that means you have a male, right? Maybe it's a husband and wife. So for example, Larry and Princess. Larry, you already took your patriclan, right? But you didn't take your matriclan.
I took both.
You took both. Okay.
I took both, yes.
And Princess, you didn't take, you haven't taken yours yet.
My mother did.
Okay, so your mother, so what's yours? What's your maternal ancestry?
Okay, and I could bring that up right now. Okay, our certificate, my mother's certificate says Bubi, spelled B-U-B-I, people living in the Bioko Island and Tikar, and then Hausa, and Fulani people living in Cameroon.
Okay, what's up, cuz? We cousins. All Fulani people are cousins. Yeah. Okay, great. So, but the family kit would be, let's say you had a husband and wife team, and the husband wanted to take the paternal and the wife wanted to take the maternal, or you have a brother and sister who wanted to find out both their mother and their father's lineage. Then the brother would take the paternal, the sister would take the maternal. Now, we've also gotten questions from family members where people say, well, should I take it? Should I have my mother take it? Or should I have my grandmother take it? In those situations, it really doesn't matter who takes it. It's really just a matter of who you want to do the swabs. Most of the time, we find people taking it and they're giving it to their parents as a gift, right? So you take it, or if your parent is the person in the family who's kind of doing, like on my maternal side, my grandmother had done a lot of the research to trace our family back to the 1800s. And on my father's side, on the Sumbry side, the Sumbrys down south, that's just what they do. If you go down Phoenix City, Alabama, Columbus, Georgia, you're gonna find Sumbry everywhere. Sumbry Mortuary, Sumbry Austin Park. You're gonna find Sumbrys have been, elected just everywhere because they're from there. And the Sumbrys have a unique history. So anybody with the last name Sumbry, we know comes from 7 brothers. We all know they come from the exact same place. If you got a name Sumbry, you either married in or we got the DNA. And we're a uniquely handsome kind of people. So anytime you see that, Christine, you can tell I'm my father's son now, right?
I was just ready to say, I said, well, I see what has been passed down by your dad, for sure. And Dia said, LMAO, we are all related. Please believe it.
We got a comment over here, Christine. Denise?
Yes, just a quick comment regarding the cost. So the host mentioned that, people benefit. The whole, the family benefits from knowing from which we come. And for my siblings and I, we recognize how important it was to know how we're connected to the continent, right? So my brother's already doing genealogy searches. So what we did was, and I recommend this for any, for families who are interested in getting the African ancestry testing done, share the cost. Just share the cost. I mean, when you start to separate it out for those that want to contribute, it was not that it wasn't manageable before. It's not to say that the $299 cost was not manageable before, but it just helps because we're all now invested in this. We're all now invested, and there are 4 of us, so we all shared the cost of that. So I just wanted to, for anyone who's listening, for anyone who's listening, all those that want to contribute, and you don't have to, necessarily benefit from it, like an uncle or whomever, whoever's part of that family, and they just want to know how, where from which we come. just contribute to the cost of it, and it makes it a little bit more manageable. So that's all I wanted to share with everybody.
And an important part, that was my takeaway, and that's important for other family members. It becomes important to them because if you just do it and tell everybody, they like, cool.
Yeah.
But even if they got to spend $50, you know, listen, I'm from Trenton, y'all my people, and Trenton helped me learn about Black people. If there's one thing I know, is Black people. And when a Black person spends $50, they want to follow up. So if somebody put up that $50, they gonna wonder what happened to that ancestor. What's happening with our project, our investment? I need to know what's our returns, what's going on. Now, if they don't contribute, they might let it slide. But as soon as they put up some money, oh, believe it, did you look it up? Did you find the records? They gonna be on you.
Hey, Diallo, we're gonna need a prayer meeting for that.
We have another question in the chat. Maida Galloway. I only have one cousin from my father's side. Should he take the patriclan test to give me information about my father?
Okay. Cousin meaning the cousin is the son of one of the father's brothers.
Maida, do you just want to unmute? There you go.
Okay, so the cousin is the son of your father's brother.
No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. My cousin is the son of my father's uncle.
The son of your father's uncle.
Right.
And your father's uncle on your father's side, not on your father's mother's side.
Correct.
So as long as it's on the paternal line.
Right.
So if he is the son of your father's uncle,
right,
that means that your father's uncle is your grandfather's brother.
Correct.
Then yes, they share the paternal line. That is the same paternal line that came through you because it's your father, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, he could take the paternal test and that would trace your paternal ancestry.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe you can help me understand this. Let's just say I take the test and you trace me to sharing a DNA with tribe X. Isn't it a chance, or is it a chance that some of the tribes that are in sort of the global options are themselves related and share the same gene? How do you just link it to one tribe?
Well, sometimes what you'll find, and sometimes what we find when we do get ancestry back, for example, I think Princess and Larry just talked about one of theirs, and I think Princess, it was Bubi of Bioko Island and Tikar of Cameroon. So sometimes it might come back with more than one ethnic group. However, remember, none of this can be 100% exact because we're comparing your Y chromosome if it's male, or your mitochondrial DNA if it's female.
Yes.
We're comparing it to our database of 33,000 samples, right? So what happens when they run with your DNA sequence is they say your DNA, either your Y chromosome for paternal or your mitochondrial DNA for maternal, it's closest to or identical to the DNA of this particular ethnic group in our database.
Okay, one follow-up question. I'm thinking that if different tribes share some DNA identity things, then can't you measure, sort of the parent to those two tribes? I mean, don't you know?
It's not that simple. So number one, we're talking about, we're talking about sometimes thousands of years of migration
Yeah.
We're talking about hundreds of years of colonization. So African ancestry goes back 500 to 2,000 years, and that's just based on the DNA science. And that's about as far as we could go back to see. But we can't necessarily say, well, we found the parents of these two tribes, and then we'd have to really kind of try to figure out. That's a lot of deep research. That's a lot of deep research. I probably could definitely send you the link to our HR department, and we could probably use you on the team with these kinds of asking these questions in the mind that you have in terms of helping us to close the gap and helping all people close the gap to really find that out. So for example, one of the things that you'll find when you travel to Africa, and this is one of the things that we lost, that we talked about in identity. Most of the time, if you ask someone where they're from, they're not going to say, I'm from Ghana. They're going to tell you the village that they're from, right? Like if you ask me, I get a kick out of it. I travel around the world and people say, they be like, oh, where are you from, my brother? And I'll be like, Trenton. And they be trying to figure out what part of Africa is Trenton. And I let them I'm from Trenton. And they be like, where's Trenton? They be like, Nigeria? No, it ain't Nigeria. but then it gives me an opportunity to explain why I'm from Trenton and what does that mean? But I'm still African. I'm still the Black man. So it's one of those things that is the reality of our historical condition and in our present day being is just who we are. You know, that's one of the things that happened over the past 400 to 700 years with the transatlantic slave trade. So as I mentioned, like I'm in Sierra Leone and I'll ask people where they're from. And they'll tell me they'll be from a village. So that village is they're not from Sierra Leone. They're from this particular village in Bo. Now there might be 3 other villages with the same name. So the village that they're gonna give me is I'm from this particular village in Bo, next to this lake, behind this mountain. That's where I'm from. And what they know is that's where their grandfather's from. That's where their great grandfather's from. And then most of the time here, people will have the oral history to kind of give you their family history as far back as they can.
Interesting.
Thank you, sir.
Wow.
Hey, I have another one.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm just checking, doing a time check from Carl. The results of the test will provide the location of our African origination. Origination. Doesn't provide any information or identify individuals on the maternal or paternal side, especially those that are unknown.
No, it won't provide information about individuals. So, for example, I think who was doing that? Larry, did you say that somebody in your family was doing genealogy, or was that Princess?
Well, I did Ancestry also.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So for example, Princess did Ancestry, and through Ancestry, you're connected to their genealogical database. So some people use some of these other companies for their genealogical database, and some people actually go into the home city or town, they go into the census records, they go into whatever the slave ship records are, or they find some other programs where they actually begin to do genealogy tracing. But African Ancestry is connected to your modern day African country and your ethnic group. So for example, it's almost as if you wanted to start from the beginning and kind of trace your way forward, or meet in the middle somewhere. So if you began tracing your family back and you began looking through the census records and the slave ship records going back, then all of us is going to run into that point. We're all going to run into that point, which stops somewhere around Jamestown, Virginia, right? It stops somewhere around that time, unless our family's from Jamaica, the islands, or something like that. And then we got to try to fill that gap, right? We got to, whatever that trip was over the Atlantic Ocean, we got to try to fill that gap and then find out where on this side. So sometimes what happens is many of these genealogical databases, they do have continental Africans who are also tracing their family on that side. So it's really a project that someone in your family has to be committed to.
Thank you. I have a question from the text messages with Sam. Regarding the results from African Ancestry, do they indicate which level of the maternal line is associated with a specific ethnic group? For example, the grandmother has this much and that much ethnic groups, and the great grandmother has this much and that much of an ethnic group lineage.
No, because remember, we're tracing mitochondrial DNA, which is the same. That mitochondrial DNA is the same in all of the people in the maternal line. So it will say, it will give you a percentage of that particular ethnic group. So for example, some people have an exact match, meaning that your DNA strand that was tested is the exact same match as the DNA tested from somebody in our database. And then sometimes it's not exact. It may be 0.01 off or 0.02 off, but sometimes it's exact. So it won't give you the names.
You said that sometimes there's an exact match, 100, like you get an exact match, and sometimes it's not an exact match. So I'm just wondering, like in some cases you say, we're 100% sure that you are associated with this group, but maybe we're only 85% sure we're associated with this group. Does it work like that?
No. So what we're saying is that within our database, your particular DNA strand is a 100% match to a DNA strand in the database. Meaning that, let's say we've collected DNA from a Fulani person who's in present day Nigeria. And their mitochondrial DNA and your mitochondrial DNA sequence is the exact same. That's an 100% match, as opposed to maybe one letter in that sequence being off. So it's not a probability of association. It's just whether or not it's a 100% match to the exact DNA strand and code that's in the database.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank y'all for having me, and I'm gonna thank the Wi-Fi gods for holding us down today, because this joint clear. I might as well be on Ingham Avenue drinking Halo Farms talking to y'all right now.